Hello and welcome to Midwest Writers Room. Our mission is to encourage, educate, and celebrate writers of the Midwest. I'm Luella Schmidt.
And I'm Ken Humphrey. Today we're interviewing Rodney Schroeter. Rodney grew up in Sheboygan County, inspired by comic artist Steve Ditko's Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, and painter James Bama's Doc Savage covers. I used to love Doc Savage books. Those were so great. After 7 years teaching middle school science in North Dakota, he launched a 22-year career in information technology while pursuing a parallel path in writing and publishing.
In 2009, he began reporting for the Random Lake Sounder, later joining the Plymouth Review as reporter, layout editor, and editor of the Plymouth Review Current. With WWA Press, he edited A Wisconsin Harvest, Volume 2, and published the comic Human Interest Stuff. Today, he designs and publishes books and serves as editor of The Current. We're so happy and thrilled to have you with us, Rodney. Welcome to Midwest Writers Room. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm in the midst of a project as usual, and that's the way I like it.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and we'll probably delve a little more into that project. But first, let's kind of get the origin story. One thing I do have to say, Rodney, is I like the parallel paths that we're running. I also had a 22-year career in information technology and was also a fan of comic book art growing up. So
Okay.
already we're in alignment. But we're here to talk about you, not me. So let's
Right.
get your origin story as a writer.
Well, I wanted to be a writer for many, many years, since childhood, but I didn't really understand, I guess, how to make it a career. So that was really what was lacking in my life. And not knowing how to do that, write a book or write books and make a living at it, I went into teaching. Didn't know what else to do. So I was teaching for several years. That was fine. I'm glad I did it. And I went into IT for a number of years, a couple of decades. And that again, I tried to emphasize my writing abilities. So as I was working in IT, I was doing documentation and perfecting my craft. I was also drawing since an early age, and I drew some comics. I wasn't making progress in my drawing abilities, and so in the 1990s, I decided I wasn't going to draw anymore, and I decided to concentrate on writing, and that was the wise thing to do.
It's actually, I think, a little unknown fact that working in IT actually helps you quite along the way for being a writer, whether you're writing documentation or just sitting there writing, during downtime in IT, which there tends to be quite a bit of, especially depending on which area you're in. So it actually
Mhm.
kind of moves you along. Um, let's talk a little bit about your WWA anthology 2012. Give us a story around that.
Well, I was contacted maybe a couple of years before that by people on the board or people in it was WR, Wisconsin Regional Writers Association, WRWA at the time, and they took out the regional while I was getting involved. But I was approached because some of the people there wanted to start a WWA Press, and I was tasked with learning how to create books. So I asked around at some of the conventions that I go to, some of the small publishers that design and publish books, what do they use? And it was InDesign, Creative Adobe Creative Suite. So I started to learn that around 2010, and that skill that I developed led me into the newspaper business because I was looking for work, um, 2012, 2010, or 2013, and so forth. So in 2014, I got a job with the Plymouth Review. Number one was editing the Plymouth Review Current, and number two was doing layout um, for pages, the sports pages, regular pages, and so forth, because I had that InDesign skill set. So that's where I got my start in the newspaper business. That was my third, fourth, fifth career, whatever, something like that.
Very good. So tell us a little bit more about the Plymouth Review Current. I mean, what is it? What do you do for them?
Okay. A woman had started that 3 years previously. It was her idea, and it was just, local things, how to do things. It was her brainchild, and she went on to other things, and they needed another editor. So I stepped in and I, took what she had created and eventually made it my own and just put in 60 some years of life experiences, whether it was writing, movies, a little bit of music, artwork, things like that. I put things that I was familiar with in the current, and it's just developed into something that people tell me they enjoy. Um, I go with my ideas things that I like, things that interest me, and it seems to interest other people as well.
Is there a online version that any of our readers can enjoy,
Yes,
or
there
is it
is.
current?
There is the current edition of the current is available each month, and it's online at PlymouthReview.com.
All right, we'll add that link down in the show notes for this.
Something else I should mention before I forget it. In the anthology, an editor has the luxury of including his own work in the work that he's editing. And there were something like 60 some pieces in that Wisconsin Harvest Volume 2. And I had a few pieces in there. One of them was a long story called That IT Magic. And I used some of the um, frustrations from my IT career and put them into that story. So that's in there.
You
I
know
have a
what?
copy of that, Ken. I'll bring it when I see you at the conference and we can check it out.
Mhm.
Yep. Because number one on that list of IT frustrations for me would have just been the endless PowerPoint presentation decks.
Hmm.
Oh, good Lord. If I never see one again, I'll be happy.
Well, just to give you an idea of what the story is about, it's about people that have a wrong view of metaphysics. They want to have some contradiction. They want to have, as the old expression is, have their cake and eat it too. They want it this way and they want it some opposite way at the same time. And there are people like that, and eventually they go insane.
Yes, absolutely. So let's delve a little bit into the comic stuff and the
Okay.
drawing world. Around 2012 as well, you produced a comic. Want to talk us through that?
Right. In 2005, I started reading some work by Albert Payson Terhune. His most famous work is dog stories. He did a book called Lad, a Dog in 1919, collection of short stories. I read a story that had so much impact, I just had to do something with it. And I knew it would make a great short movie. I'm not a movie maker. I don't know what to do with movies. But since I had done some comics in the past, I took the story and I made an adaptation in comic book form, just like a screenwriter would take a novel and do a screenplay of it. And I found the perfect artist for it. His name is William Messner Loebs. He did a lot of stuff in the 1980s, became famous with a comic called Journey. And over a period of 6 years, because I was paying him professional rates and had to do it, a small bit at a time, it took 6 years, and that was interrupted by my loss of my job in early 2009 when everything was being downsized. So over 6 years, I worked with Bill Messner-Loebs, and we created this comic book called Human Interest Stuff. It's an adaptation of this Albert Payson Terhune story.
Very, very cool. Is it still out? Still available out in
Oh
print?
yes, it's available on eBay. Uh, just do a search, Human Interest Stuff, um, Messner-Loebs. You can probably find it easily. I'm selling it on eBay for $3.50 plus postage.
Okay, very good. So, in that vein, anything future in the pipeline for you for doing comics, or is that kind of a one and done? You scratch.
Uh, well, in a sense, yes. I work with a co-publisher, Robin Snyder worked with comic artist Steve Ditko for several decades, and Ditko died in 2018. He was, of course, the artist, the comic artist who, with Stan Lee, co-created Spider-Man in 1962 and Doctor Strange in 1963. And Steve Ditko did a lot of work for a company called Charlton. And all of that work is in the public domain. Anybody and anyone can and has reprinted a lot of that work. But Robin Snyder and I are taking a year at a time, like 1971, 72, 73, in publishing in book form all of the work that appeared in that year. So that's kind of what, in a line of comics, that's what I'm doing. Not a lot of creative writing in there, but it's layout design and
That sounds like a
scanning.
labor of love.
Yes, yes, it is.
All right. So, if Ditko was one of your famous artists from the past, is there anybody currently nowadays that you would bring up as a real favorite artist in your eye?
I do not read a whole lot of modern comics. There's one called uh, I can't think of the name of it. It's by Stan Sakai. It's a funny animal genre comic about a masterless samurai, a Ronin, and you'd have to look it up what it's called. It's some kind of a Japanese name. So don't really read a lot of current comics though.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
To get my kicks for comics, I usually have to go to 1940s or 50s um, romance comics. And the reason for that is that they're just beautifully drawn and they tell a story in a very coherent, um, non-psychotic way. So that's what I'm looking for.
I don't think I knew that there was romance comics.
Oh, yes. They were very big.
I'm gonna have to do some digging.
Yep.
Yep, just sent down Luella down another path. Hopefully, we can keep her with us long enough before she starts Googling romance comics. So, Luella, should we jump into the message?
Yeah, absolutely. Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Our nonprofit press has some exciting projects on the horizon. Next month, we'll release Tales of a Preacher's Brood by Pamela Fullerton. Ken and I will be interviewing Pamela at our October Writers Conference in Stevens Point. This memoir weaves short tales of a tight-knit band of Wisconsin preachers' kids who grew up in rural 1950s and 60s poverty to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, writers, one noble felon, and an honest to goodness all American hero. We're also working on a brand new horror anthology in partnership with the Wisconsin chapter of the Horror Writers Association, with plans for future anthologies in various genres. WWA Press is accepting submissions. You can learn more at wiwrite.org. All right, back to Rodney. So, in segment two, we like to talk a little bit more about you and maybe advice, how you work, and what you have to sort of share with all of your experience for other writers who are maybe newer. And so, let's kick it off with, what's your best advice to newer writers and how they
Okay.
can sort of learn?
Okay. I think this applies to new writers or seasoned writers, no matter what kind of level one considers one's expertise. But one thing I believe is really helpful is to join a writers group, a writers critique group, where you submit things and share it, and you talk about it in one way or another. Whether you read it out loud at the group or you just, meet and critique the work. I think you can learn an awful lot from others. You know, uh, Everyone perceives something a little bit differently in a work, and it's all often very surprising to hear what someone sees in a work. Another thing is, I think you need to you need to make a decision on what level you're going to be writing. There are all kinds of levels, just like playing golf. You can putter around at the mini golf course, or you can become a pro. Just like that, just like writing, you can, write something in your diary that nobody else is supposed to ever see, or enter it on the computer and the keyboard. Nobody else is going to see it. Or you can do, something quick, like in the newspaper business, you have to get it there. You have to do a competent job, get competent, but still, it's not something you perfect. You don't write a column and then revise it over month after month after month like you would a novel or something. And then, of course, you get a little bit more complex and write something that you perfect over a long period of time. So you have to decide what kind of purpose you're writing for. And I'm afraid I see some people that aspire to a certain level, but they're not really interested in mastering the craft that's required to reach that level. I hear all too many times, oh, that's a grammar thing. Oh, I'm not interested, don't like grammar, and then you have to say, well, what are they involved in this for? Why are they doing this? They want to aspire to a certain level, but, not reach it. So I think that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Writers group and decide what your purpose is in writing.
And so that's very interesting. I mean, the writer's critique group is probably the number one answer we get in terms of
Hmm.
advice, but picking your level that you're aspiring to, we've had people talk about, yeah, pick your goal or kind of decide what you want to do. But the way you just phrase it in terms of the different levels that you write at, I find that very interesting. That's a very unique way to look at it. When you're talking, I was kind of thinking about myself,
Are
right?
you sure it's very unique? Are you sure it's very unique, or is it just plain unique?
I like to
The editor
overemphasize.
just got you, Ken. The
Yeah.
editors showed up.
God
Yeah.
bless it. Well, I
Well,
don't like
for the
grammar. I don't know
purposes
what I'm doing here.
for the purposes of this talk, I'm sure very unique is perfectly acceptable.
Yes, I wanted to make sure I emphasized it. So when you're writing, then what is your particular muse? I mean, what gets you moving forward on the page?
Well, I'm the muse. I don't. I'm. I like supernatural stories sometimes. I love the movie Xanadu, where the muses come out of the wall and uh, dance around, and Olivia Newton-John is one of them. But ultimately, if you sit around waiting for that muse, I think you're going to be waiting a long time, and you need to look right inside yourself and find it right there. So again, it gets back to what is your purpose. If it's just to put silly things on paper and make people laugh, that's fine too. Um, but defining what your purpose is also will show you your muse.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. How about just your general writing environment? I mean, do you have to be at your desk? Do you like to go to coffee shops, sit on the couch with a laptop? Is there just a particular way you write?
Well, I have two offices, and my main one is my sanctum where I'm nice and safe and it's nice and dark around me, and I have a few little lights here. it's quiet at night, and usually I can't sleep, so I'm working in the middle of the night, and I hear things outside thumping around, and so it's a nice, comfortable environment, just like The Shadows Sanctum, if you're familiar with that pulp hero.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Luella, is it time for special sauce?
It sure is. This is all one of our favorite questions. So the special sauce question, Rodney, is asking you to share a little bit more about your life and what makes you sort of different, what skill or passion or hobby outside of writing um, makes you unique.
Hmm. Well, I mentioned Steve Ditko already. Steve Ditko is one of two artists that I grew up on their work. I met them. I got to correspond with them. The other one is James Bama, um, he started out as an illustrator, and Doc Savage books were mentioned. He did about 50 Doc Savage paperback covers. He did several hundred other paperbacks, men's magazines, all kinds of illustrations. And then he moved to Wyoming and became the greatest painter of the 20th century. Not an opinion, by the way, that's a fact. Um, I got to know him in the 1980s, and we just hit it off, even though we he was 30 years older than I am, and we just hit it off, and found so many things in common. And when I was sending him copies of the Current, he said it's almost like I was editing the Current especially for him. So we were just on the same wavelength, and his work is his work and Steve Ditko's, I think, just permeated my life so much. And I styled myself, or it was kind of flippantly that I referred to myself as a world authority on the art of James Bama. But it kind of came true at one point. I walked into a pulp convention maybe 3 years ago, and this art dealer, this illustration art dealer that I consider big expert, he can identify, a work of art, who did it by just looking at it. He rushed up to me and said, Rodney, you have to come over. This friend of mine, he has a painting. He doesn't know if it's by Jim Bama or not. So I go over there and one glance, yes, okay, I know. That's Jim Bama's artwork. It's not signed. I know I kind of had in my mind which paperback it was on, and after a few lookups on the phone, we identified which paperback it was. He used his wife as a model. That was one clue. But I mean, just the style, it was obviously him. So, well, all right, maybe I am a world authority on the art of James Bama.
I would
That's
say
what it
it's
sounds
been
like.
solidified right here,
Mhm.
right now. I remember reading some Doc Savage books when I was young. What was his tagline? The Man of
Man
Bronze?
of Bronze.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yep. I remember that.
Yes, the Doc Savage books are great for kids because they get you interested in just everything. I mean, just all sorts of professions, because Doc was the best at everything.
hmm Yeah. I remember there being a very, even though they're, kind of tagged as adventure books, I remember there being a very heavy science
Oh yes,
element to it.
right.
Yeah.
Doc was, I mean, he used all these gadgets, and the stories were originally from the 30s, so they're kind of dated, but they just have their wonderful charm.
Okay. So I'm seeing one other note here on your bio, an advocate for silent movies. Can you
Oh
delve
yeah.
a little bit into that? What is
Hmm.
that?
Not okay. Glad you asked. I've been writing about silent movies, and I'm trying to draw the attention of the average person to, try to watch silent movies. Turner Classic Movies will show them every once in a while. I have found it very, very successful to watch them with kids and to talk about them as you're watching them. Now, the typical movie that kids watch or that people watch is on the level of kids. They're big explosions, they're loud noises, and you got to shut up and listen to it. And you can't talk, you say something and you miss the dialogue and so forth. So the person is just kind of not really interacting, especially the kid. With a silent movie, and especially if you're familiar with it to the point where you can say, "Hey, watch this now. What's he thinking?" Freeze the frame and say, look at his face. What's he thinking? What's he saying, and so forth. You can engage the kid in a way that the average explosion and loud noise and loud and big color movie is not going to engage a kid. I mean, it just typical movie is just a bunch of loud noises smashing you in the face and not even giving you a chance to think. A silent movie, for example, the greatest one I think is The General with Buster Keaton. You want a good movie to watch the kids with, you watch that one.
Okay, I have to say,
Yeah,
so I'm not an expert on silent movies in any way, but I am working my way through the top 100 movies according to American Film
sure.
Institute, and one of the early ones, number 11 on the list, is City Lights,
Right.
with Groucho Marx, and another
No,
one
no,
more
no, no,
recent.
no, 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 no.
What? No, but sorry,
Charlie
Charlie
Chaplin.
Chaplin. Yeah, see, I told you I'm not an expert.
Right, right, right.
That was my first experience with a silent film was that movie, and
Right.
I really loved it. And then a little bit later on the top 100 was The General, which is again the first time I've ever seen that. And
Okay.
I love the fact that you are pointing out that that movies without sound offer an ability to be more creative, and to have a conversation about what's going on and to ask, the viewer, especially kids, what they think and to talk it through. I think that's really neat.
Okay. Well, another movie I'll mention, it's not silent, but it's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I wrote a teacher's guide or an instructor's guide, a lesson plan that I developed with that movie because a couple of years ago, I experimented with a couple of kids, age 6 and 7. We watched that movie and did a study guide, drew the spacecraft and some things that, where they had their hands on, and we sang the song that Hal sings as he's being disconnected and so forth. But we watched the movie over 2 days, broke it up into sections. And that is a movie that most adults watching, they just never understood. You can't understand it the first time around. And that's understandable. He put that movie together, Stanley Kubrick put that movie together in such a way that people weren't supposed to understand it the first time around. So the kids liked it. The 6 and 7 year old kids liked it. And the third session, we watched it with the mom, and the kids explained it to the mom. And so they were explaining a movie that most adults wouldn't get.
Wow.
What a cool idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How about telling our listeners and viewers where they can find more about you?
Well, I do have a Facebook group for the Current set up. It's a private group. You have to knock on the door and ask for admittance. The Current is online. My books are available on Barnes and Noble or Amazon and 50 other booksellers. I publish through Ingram Spark, so they do the distribution.
Nice,
Um,
thank you. We'll make sure we include those links. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
no,
Okay,
and as I say, I sell human interest stuff and the anthology on eBay.
perfect.
All right. Time for good news, Luella?
You bet, listeners. We want to celebrate your good news with you. So email us, podcast@wiwrite.org. We'd love to shout you out and share in your successes. Ken, you want to kick us off? What do you got for good news?
So, at our cabin up north, this year we had our second annual block party. We call it St. Andrew's Fest, and we get about 100, 120 people. I can confirm that cranberry juice and peanut butter whiskey is correctly named as a peanut butter and jelly drink. It tastes just like peanut butter and jelly. It is so good. Herein lies the problem.
I was ready to kind of mock you on that, Ken, but I get it. I get it.
Oh, it is so good, but it wreaks havoc with your golf game the next day. So be careful with that. How about you, Rodney? What's your good news?
Well, I'm involved in a project, a book project. I'm collecting and going to be publishing a book of art by artist Mike Hinge, 1931 to 2003. He was, most people know him, if they know him at all, for his science fiction work, but he did way more than that. So I've been collecting his drawings and so forth for 20 some years, and going to put some original art in there and some other things.
All right.
Sounds like a great project.
Yeah. Any deadline for that?
No deadline since I'm the one publishing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, bring us full circle. What's your good news?
Oh, my good news is, okay, so if you've listened to the podcast recently, you know that we moved back in the spring, and man, did that throw me off my writing game. It felt like it took me forever to kind of get back into routines again. And now just in the last couple weeks, I was able to finish actually 2 writing projects that I was working on right in a row, boom, boom. And so I'm starting to feel like, my normal real self again, which is good. And so we'll take it.
Yay for Luella.
We'll take it. I'm still a kind of a baby writer compared to a lot of people, and I don't know what my normal rhythms are yet. And so when I'm not writing regularly, I kind of freak out, trying to figure it out. All right, listeners and viewers, if you want to share your good news with us, again, that's podcast@wiwrite.org. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. So at this time, I want to thank Rodney for joining us on the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating in the podcast app of choice. This is the type of action that helps other writers find us, helps us grow the program. I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the Midwest Writers Room with us. I'm Ken Humphrey.
And I'm Luella Schmidt. Words ignite imaginations and spark change. Never underestimate the power of storytelling.
Midwest Writers Room is a production of the Wisconsin Writers Association. Writing and editing by Luella Schmidt and Ken Humphrey. Sound design and editing by Ken Humphrey. Music for the Midwest Writers Room was written by Michael Ramir C. For more information, please visit wiwrite.org/podcast. Thank you.